Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the January Brooklyn Solid Waste Advisory Board meeting. We're very excited to have you here. We will go around the room and introduce ourselves here in the conference room. And please put in the chat your name and what brings you here. Pablo?
Pablo Garcia. I'm a Brooklyn SWAB member. I'm on the Organic and Legislative Committee, and I do academic research.
And I am Rhonda Kaiser, and I'm the chair of the Brooklyn SWAB.
I'm Matt Savello, chair of the Manhattan SWAB.
Mary Ellen Sullivan, secretary of Brooklyn SWAB.
Mike DeBenny, active in SWAB for about 12 years.
Jason Ginsberg, working climate, been attending these virtually for about 5 months in person.
Sargon Solutia, I'm just trying to come more often.
Hi, I'm Michael Reeser. I'm the sergeant at arms from Brooklyn SWAB, and I work for Think Care.
I'm Lacey Tauber. I'm the legislative director here at Brooklyn Borough Hall. And I'm Beth Slepian. I'm vice chair of the Brooklyn SWAB.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you to everyone who's put your name in the chat. Please feel free, anyone who'd like to put your name in the chat and what brings you here, please feel free to do so. And let's get started. So, so first of all, welcome to 2025. We have, it's going to prove, I'm sure, to be a year that we need to all keep up our positivity and our vigilance, I believe. And so in the interest of keeping up our positivity, we wanted to have, in general, speakers who we see are already doing great things for climate justice, for environmental justice. And so in that, we're very excited to have Stephanie Fox join us from Comptroller Brad Lander's office and talk about what they're doing in the office and what Steph is going to talk about the climate data dashboard. I'm sure I've said that completely wrong, but Steph is strategic organizer for the environmental and climate justice at the Comptroller Brad Lander's office. She works in the intersection, I'm reading it, but of policy and public engagement on the climate. Prior to this, she was at the Public Advocate's office, where they led the climate organizing for the office, and she comes to public service after nearly a decade in both climate advocacy and private renewables industry. So we're really excited to hear about the climate dashboard today, a one-stop shop webpage for all things climate and environmental information in New York City. So to the climate, talking about transparency, it's all about helping New Yorkers hold the city accountable for the climate goals. So thank you for all of that. And please, yes, you could go ahead. Thank you, Stephanie. Welcome.
Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Fox. As just mentioned, I'm the strategic organizer for climate and environmental justice at the Office of the Comptroller. I'm really excited to talk to you all about the climate dashboard today. It's a project that we've been working on since this administration started, and we've been kind of building upon it and growing it every year. We actually, at the end, I'll tell you about some things that we're working on for the next update. But as I mentioned, it's pretty straightforward. We are a one-stop shop for all things climate data in New York. So we're trying to expand it and make it more useful. The goal of this is always to get more information out into the hands of people who can utilize it. So let's start at the beginning. I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of what our office does and how we interact with this space, and then get started on the climate dashboard. So first up, we have a climate team on the policy side. The climate team currently consists of Louise Young, who's our first ever chief climate officer, and myself. We also have a couple different, policy analysts that also work with us on various topics or like data processing issues as well that are like kind of part team members. But we're not the only climate team in the office. We also do a lot of climate finance, as you're all well aware, as the comptroller is in charge of um, hundreds of billions of dollars of pension money, and we try to use that money prudently. And one of the ways we do that is through investing smartly. So we have a team here that works on those as well. One second. Yeah, so as kind of a little bit about like how we confront the climate crisis. So largely speaking, what we are is a financial and accountability officer. So we do things like transparency management and holding the administration accountable. And we're focused on long-term risk. Of course, the number one long-term risk of New York City as an archipelago is climate change. So we're working to shepherd an equitable and just transition to a low carbon economy because that is what's best for New Yorkers. And we're also trying to make sure that we're equipping our city to be prepared and resilient for the impacts of climate change. We do believe that there's plenty to be done to prevent the worst of climate change, but also it's important to be prepared for what will be coming as well. And we have a couple different tools that we utilize to make that happen. One of the things we do is we can do original research and analysis and make policy recommendations. Couple of the things we've worked on recently. We have a couple of reports here that are like examples of that. One of them is Cap the Credits, which is our recommendations on how to best implement Local Law 97, focused on carbon credits. We have one that is called Bringing Basement Apartments into the Light, which is about legalization of basement apartments and making sure that they're done in a safe manner and that is done within appropriate areas that are not as acceptable to climate change. And also overheated and underserved, which is an analysis of heating and cooling centers across New York City. We also do strategic organizing. Largely speaking, it's what I do. We do a couple different things. We work with advocates, allies. We do meetings like this to make sure that we're talking to people in the public or people that are involved in important work. We do things like advocating for legislation. We use our platform to uplift community-based work. We testify at hearings. We attend rallies. Basically, anything we can do to make sure that we're getting the voices of the people involved with our work or ways that we can get the voice of our office involved with your work is kind of like where strategic organizing kind of comes into play. And that does interact with policy as well. We have an example here is a report that we did with some outside partners and also our policy team, where we were working with outside partners to talk about the impacts of social cohesion on resiliency issues. The findings of that being what most people do recognize, which is that more cohesive neighborhoods where people know each other are more resilient to climate change. We also, as I mentioned, work with our pension investments. We are working to achieve a net zero investment portfolio across 3 of the 5 pension systems right now. We divested from fossil fuels. We're currently working on further divesting from, well, not divesting, we're looking to restrict for future investments in certain other kinds of fossil fuel infrastructure as well. We're investing in climate solutions right now. We're actually ahead of our goal so far, which is 50 billion by 2035. We had some benchmarks and we're currently passing those benchmarks, so we're pretty proud of that. And of course, we use our shareholder power to push companies to basically be better. We do things like forcing the banks to disclose how much money that they're investing in renewable energy and dirty energy. This way, it brings in more transparency so people can compare banks. We also do that with some other topics as well. Like we're very active in labor spaces. We recently had a big win, winning some labor rights for sugarcane farmers in India. So this work actually goes beyond our city. It goes internationally. And we provide transparent and reliable information. One big example, of course, is this climate dashboard that I'm going to be talking to you through momentarily. So, as we're all aware, climate change exacerbates underlying racial and economic inequalities. Climate risk doesn't impact everyone equally. There's people that are more impacted by certain aspects of it. There's people that are less impacted by certain aspects of it. For instance, some populations are more susceptible to heat. Some are more susceptible to what's called storm surges. And there's different kinds of way that people can be shaped, be impacted by these things. For instance, physical exposure, like rising global temperatures, sensitivity. the example we give here is that older adults face some greater risk for heat and capacity to adapt. For instance, people who can't afford AC are more at risk of heat related issues. And there's racial disparities of climate impacts. I'm actually going to be showing you some maps later that show how some of our indicators impact and interact with things like the history of redlining. And also, we apply a climate justice lens to seek to address those harms to prioritize the needs of the frontline communities as we take climate action. We want to be mindful that we're looking out for the people most impacted. Now, as I mentioned, climate change exacerbates underlying racial and economic inequalities. What does that look like? So we have two maps here. One of these maps is from banking redlining. Basically, what banks used to do, arguably still do in some ways, is they used to literally put lines around neighborhoods based upon certain aspects of the populations. For instance, African American neighborhoods or what's called immigrant neighborhoods were considered more risky and not worthy of investment. And that had an impact on the physical structure of infrastructure in those areas. So much so that you can still see the impacts of those today. For instance, you can look at what the redlining map looked like, and you can compare it to the heat vulnerability index of our city, which is a current map. And you can see that there's many places that those interact. Part of what we want to do with this cloud dashboard is make it easier for people to see these things and compare current issues to historical issues relating to race and economic inequality. So let me talk to you a little bit about the dashboard itself. Let me pull it up real quick. I know we were talking about tabs before. I've got about 50 tabs open currently. Okay. Can you see my current screen, the cloud dashboard, or am I still showing the presentation?
It's the
No, I see the dashboard.
Cool.
No,
Okay.
it's the presentation.
Cool. I will switch that now. Share and okay. Now you can see it, right?
No, it's still the presentation.
Really?
Yes. There it is. Yay.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, I usually do this at my work computer, but I was working from home today, so this is being done on my laptop. All right, so here it is, New York City Climate Dashboard. The way you can find this on our website is you can just go up to Services and Resources, and then you can see, wait, where is it? Hold on. You can move things around here. How about that? Go here, and then you can pull up the cloud dashboard over here. So yeah, you'll bring you this page. This is just like a kind of a welcome page. We're talking a little bit about kind of some of the commitments our city has made. Part of the purpose of this dashboard is also to hold the city accountable to promises that we've made. A big promise that we've made is that we have committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. It's one thing to make a commitment, and we're very proud of that very strong commitment. But it's a whole other thing to make sure people know that we're actually doing it. Often when people make commitments, we're depending on trust or benchmarks or something for other people to hold us accountable. We're trying to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable by making sure that information is public and easily usable. Now, there's a couple different parts of this dashboard. We're going to start off with the energy section. We have a page for energy, emissions, climate finance, environmental quality, resiliency, and a feedback form. So first up, right up here is the power mix for New York City. naturally, our goal is eventually to get this to all net zero energy sources, but currently we're not doing a very good job. If you look at the green versus the orange and I guess that's light orange or yellow, you'll notice that the green isn't very, very big on this map. That's because the vast majority of energy in New York City comes from fossil fuels, overwhelmingly, mostly fracked gas. But there's different ways to bring that down. It is difficult to bring energy into to New York City, mostly because it is like I mentioned before, an archipelago. It has limited space. So there's different ways you can make sure that we get power in. One of those is by building more power lines to get energy from either upstate or other states or offshore into the to our city. But also, we've made a commitment to install 1,000 megawatts of solar power in New York City. Good thing about solar power is it's installed right here on something we have an abundance of, which is rooftops. So it's cool that we've made that commitment to get to 1,000 megawatts of solar power by 2030. But like I mentioned before, one thing to make a promise and a commitment, a whole nother thing to show people how we're doing on this. So what this chart does is it shows you year by year how much progress we've made in getting to that goal of 1,000 megawatts by 2030. And you can see right now, each year how much we've done. And you can see 2023, we built 83 megawatts of solar power, for instance. And if we want to get to that 1,000 megawatt goal, we have to continue at a pace of 73. So last year actually outpaced what we need to be doing to get to that 1,000 megawatts. And it's important that we keep up that pace. All right, next up is emissions. Well, now like I mentioned, our city is committed to reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2050. This is a little chart showing how we're doing with that. So it dates back to 2005, so you can see the progress we've made year by year to get to that zero emissions. This is the goal that we have. This is where we currently are. You'll notice that we are not very close to that goal, but we have a downward slope, which is a good start. We also separate that out by buildings, transportation, and waste. Waste, I'm sure most of you are interested in the most. So you can kind of see like not only how we're doing as far as like total aggregate goes as far as emissions, but you can actually see them broken down into like where the problems are. And we actually break that down even further. We have a buildings to transportation and a waste section. So you can actually see the specifics of kind of how we're doing emissions. So you can see them broken up by residential, commercial, and manufacturing, and then you can see their specific use of fuel as well. So you can see how much gas they're using, how much electricity they're using, how much fuel oil they're using. And this map over chart over here, you can see percentage of change. For instance, you can see that since 2005, we reduced the amount of electricity that we've been dependent on, but we've drastically increased the amount of gas that we've been dependent on. So what this shows you is that an area that we might want to pay more attention to is gas emissions. And this is a pretty cool map we have down here. Yeah, so Local Law 84 was passed in 2022, and that required buildings of a certain size to report their basically their energy efficiency ratings. So this is every single benchmark building in the entire city. You can actually zoom in, and you can actually look at individual buildings. So if you say live over here, you can actually be like, what buildings by me are putting out what kinds of pollution? You can see these red dots, which are people that are currently having a pretty bad time reducing their emissions. You can see what they're doing. For instance, you can see it's a warehouse. You can see data about like what kind of energy they're using, what kind of power they're using, and you can see their emissions as well. The good thing about this is you can see specifically where in your neighborhood emissions are coming from. You can pinpoint them and you can hold specific polluters accountable as well. Transportation. Like we do for buildings, we also break up where emissions are coming from in our city's transportation network. For instance, you can see that the overwhelming amount of emissions in our city come from passenger cars. Hopefully, we just started condition pricing yesterday. Hopefully, we can see some of this come down after we do that. But right now, it is our biggest problem in New York City as far as emissions in transportation goes. So we're trying to find out more ways we can get people onto things like railways, which are a much smaller subsection of how much energy we're using. We also have the percentage differences. You can see like how things have changed since 2005. We also track things like bike lanes. We made a commitment to build 50 miles of bike lanes every year. This chart shows how we're doing. For instance, you can see last year and the year before, not doing so great. We did not meet our goals for how much miles of protected bike lanes we were trying to install in our city. What you can use this for is you can use this as a specific measurement to see like, look, this is where, this is how much the administration has built this year. That's a problem. We also track biking, parking spaces added. I am a person who rides a bike a lot, and I know that one of the big problems I've had for riding my bike sometimes is finding a place to park in a busy space. Our city is currently trying to build more parking spaces for those, and this is tracking that. We're also tracking how much electric vehicles our city is using. This is actually all cars that are registered in New York City. So, like if you have registered your car out of state, unfortunately, this does not cover that. But it tracks how much, what kinds of vehicles are registered in New York City. And you can see approximately 1.9% of our vehicles in New York City currently are electric vehicles. Most of them are gas and diesel. And we're also tracking how much our city is buying electric vehicles. This chart represents the size of our EV fleet when it comes to city vehicles. And we have a map of sustainable, that is zoomed out. Oh, that's strange. There we go. There's New York City. This is a map of where there are city EV fleets charging stations, New York City bike routes. And you can see if you click on the bike routes, you can see specifically what kind of bike route it is, whether or not it's a protected bike lane or a non-protected bike lane or other kinds of bike infrastructure. And also, we have put a lens on this thing, one layer on this thing, which is showing environmental justice communities. So you can kind of see like how infrastructure interacts with environmental justice areas. For instance, you can see a lot of environmental justice areas have little to no bike infrastructure. And for emissions, last but not least, we have waste. We do things like tracking organics collection participation. You can see last year, our organics collection skyrocketed up, which we're pretty happy about. You can also see that from 2018 to 2019, organics collection drastically went down. That is because we got rid of the old collection program. But we're happy about the new collection program coming into effect, and we're excited to see how far we can get these lines all the way up. And we also check diversion rate by borough. So if you're competitive, I know Brooklyn tends to be a pretty competitive borough. You want to see how we're doing, you can compare us to other boroughs. Currently, Brooklyn is not doing so great compared to some of the other ones, but we're still beating the Bronx, so that's not lost. Before I move on, is there any questions so far?
Yeah, can you talk about where the data is coming from specifically?
Oh, yes. So almost all of this data comes from New York City open data. Some of it comes from New York State open data. Some of it comes from other areas of open data. But most of this comes from New York City open data, which is a portal that New York City runs, which just releases raw information out. It's very useful if you happen to have a PhD in data science or if you're really good at GIS. Of course, most people are not good at those things or do not have the training to manage a GIS program. So what we do is we take that information from open data and we make it usable by putting it into charts, by putting it into usable maps, and basically finding ways to make sure that people who can use this information have access to this information in a way that's accessible.
Stephanie, related to that, are there any efforts to make the data available on a more regular basis? It seems like a lot of this is from 12 months ago. Is that an effort at all?
Yeah, actually, this year we're currently working on automating a lot of this work. So right now I go in every year, once a year, and do this all by hand. This year we're currently working on finding out what of this data can be automated, and hopefully by this coming year we will have a lot of this dashboard completely automated, so it will be updated more regularly.
Is it your how should I put it, intention that the layman can use this data? Well, how could a layman use this data? If journalists can't really figure it out, how's the layman going to use it? Do you have like referrals to how to go about getting solar power or anything like that?
Well, the layman can use this because, if you want to know, for instance, what buildings in your neighborhood are polluting, you can look at that map and you can see. You are curious about how our city's doing on a certain goal, you can look at this dashboard and find that answer. We're trying to make sure that information is visible and usable. As far as like referrals for solar panels goes, that's the thing that's done in the private sector. So we don't usually do referrals to private sector companies. Although we are currently working on something called Public Solar New York, which is going to be a public option for developing solar. More on that soon, but we're currently in program development for it.
Wow. Maggie's been patient with her hand up for a bit.
Oh, sure.
That's it. Thanks. Oh, you're muted.
I was muted, yes, somebody muted me. I've been putting a bunch of things in the chat that I hope Stephanie will be able to look at later, but one of the things regarding this annual greenhouse gas emissions graph where waste is a minuscule part of it, EPA has been putting out data that show how much, where the carbon comes from a product point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that about half of the carbon that's emitted is emitted in the creation of products, packaging, and food, and transportation of it and use of it. In other words, all the things that we as SWABs are trying to address with zero waste programs. And I noticed you said there was some huge sum of money that you're using to address the climate problems, but is any of it going to, the upstream waste issue that is not taken into account in this graph?
So your question is there any resources going to reduce things like packaging waste?
It's not just packaging, it's products. We're buying too many products, packaging,
example,
food, waste in all of those categories. And that's why half the emissions of carbon are from upstream creation of all of what we are demanding to consume.
I mean, we don't disagree at all. That's a big issue that we've used our bully pulpit to advocate for. For instance, one of the things we have recently what's called did some advocacy for was, I'm blanking on the name of the bill, but it was about increasing producer responsibility for basically making plastic products. I think what I hear you're saying is that it's one thing to throw something out, it's a whole nother thing to develop that product utilizing very harmful environmental practices such as plastic production. So like, yeah, I mean, we support policies that will address those things. Is that currently what's represented here in waste? No, that is currently not, because that's largely speaking, like, this is specifically like trash waste, not so much like the entirety of the upstream production of it.
Right, but so the way it currently is that those tiny little towns out west that do logging and mining
Mhm.
are charged for all of our consumption here. We're
Yeah.
demanding paper and metals and all kinds of things be delivered to us, but we're not taking any responsibility for that. And we're charging it locally to where it was generated, where they ripped down the forests and where they were mining things and refining and manufacturing, much of which is done outside of New York City's borders.
Yeah.
So this graph is not, it's not fair, it's not accurate.
Mhm.
And I'm concerned about that. What was it, $50 billion being spent? And it's not being spent on waste prevention or reuse or recycling
I
or.
will actually get into specifically that $50 billion in our next slides, actually. So
Okay.
you can hear more about that. But they are focused mostly on energy issues. Stay tuned for that in the next section.
Yay.
Any other questions so far?
I had one other question, and that was, do you know the percentage participation rate for organics curbside program?
Let's see. This is you said percentage?
Yeah,
I
percentage.
don't know that offhand. No, sorry.
Yeah, because this is a problem that goes back decades where the city gives us thousands and millions, but they don't talk about percentages.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, if you have access to information about where we can get open data related to that, please let me know. I can see how we can integrate that.
Excellent. Beth, do you want to ask?
Well, I was going to ask a similar follow-up question, which was just in looking at the data of the organics collection participation. I'm curious to see if it could be presented so that we could see the participation relative to how many actual buildings we have in the city, or somewhere to let us know, that yes, we can see this great increase in participation, but we're only seeing it relative to itself and not relative to what the numbers really are citywide.
Yeah. I mean, if you're curious about that compared to total buildings, pardon me. Just please do all of them. Yeah, so if you want to, if you have information related to like proportions, you can find places to get those proportions. Let me know and we can see how we can plug those in. Right now, we're utilizing what's available on open data, so we kind of have access to what is released by the administration.
Yeah, we had a speaker just not too long ago, Samantha and Brian, talking about capture rates versus diversion rates, and she got that from open data, doesn't she?
She did, but she came up with a formula to figure it out.
Yeah.
Based
She
on,
got some population assumptions.
yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah, feel free to share that forward with me. I can see how we can integrate that.
That'd be
Okay,
great.
let's do that.
So I have a question on this participation slide. Are we talking about the number of buildings that to which organics is available? Or are we
No,
talking,
participation.
meaning in terms of pounds or tons?
This is number of units that are participating. Buildings, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, buildings.
Yeah, which is different from Samantha McBride.
Yes.
Right.
Like
She's
concept,
talking about,
yeah.
Yeah.
But I like this as a way of looking at it too. And
Yeah.
But if you have a 50-unit building and which is participating, you're counting that as 50 units, although.
Nope, we are counting that as buildings.
So the same 50-unit building counts the same as the brownstone that I live in. that
Nope,
has-
because if you look at this, you can see one of them is 1 to 9 unit buildings. One of these is 10 plus unit buildings.
but we don't have any additional data on larger buildings broken down. Like
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is it where the organics are actually being picked up from?
That is what this is supposed to be, yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Great questions. Should we go to Allison for a quick question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if this is in there anywhere, but I was wondering, obviously, we really would love to see more information on the climate impacts of diverting food waste. So I'm wondering if there could be an additional dashboard showing how, how much we can reduce our emissions individually and, as a city by separating food waste, even with an app where people could input how many pounds of food waste they divert every week or month and what that equivalent is in reducing emissions, because it might be a useful tool in increasing participation in curbside composting, which we all want to see happen.
Cool. So what's the question?
Could you create and maybe you have it and I didn't see it, but just kind of an additional dashboard that shows the food waste. I saw waste as a category, but I didn't see food waste as a category.
And to show the carbon footprint of the savings, right?
How we can reduce how the city, by reducing the food waste, what that climate impact is as a city and as we individually.
This is largely speaking showing like what we are doing, not what could be done as far as like how we can save more. The point of this is kind of showing where we are right now and showing exactly what the numbers are currently. So it's like less like what could be in the future, more about like where we are with our promises and where we are with pollution currently, and showing some historical data as well.
Maybe that's something we can do with that climate dashboard to say that what could be.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll follow up.
Yeah, nice.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and move on to climate finance. So the cool thing about climate finance is that this is the only page that's completely dedicated to holding our own office accountable. Specifically, this is focused on some of the climate finance commitments that the New York City Comptroller's Office has made, along with our city's pension fund advisors. So we have made a plan to get to net zero by 2040. 3 out of the 5 pension systems have approved a plan that we've proposed to them to get there. That's a lot of work we have to get done. But like, where are we currently in it? I mentioned before that one of the things we're trying to do is we're trying to get to $50 billion in climate solutions. You can see here that we're currently ahead. We needed to get to 11 billion by 2025. Last year, we just about, and I believe since then, have surpassed that 11 billion. But the question is, of course, where is this money going? We have some examples here. Some of the things we've invested in, one of them is called Intersect Power. They're like a clean energy company focused on scalable carbon solutions in retail and wholesale markets. We have Form Energy. They're doing like manufacturing and commercialization of ways to store electricity. And also we're trying to do things like tracking sun. There's different ways to have more dynamic solar panels and solar units that actually travel with the sun, which can then collect more energy, thus making those solar panels even more efficient than they would be if they were stationary. And these are just 3 examples. There's a whole lot more in that current 11 billion. But yeah, I mentioned that we have 3 of the 5 plans have passed a net zero plan. Down here, you can see each one, NYSERS, TRS, and BERS. And you can see kind of where our status is currently and how much more we have to go to get to that net zero. So you can see the plan here. You can see that they all go from 100 to something lower in June of 2022. What that represents is the ground we've covered so far with divesting from, what's it called? Fossil fuel reserves. So it's like physical holding of natural gas, oil, other kinds of storage of physical, what's it called? Fossil fuels. But we have a couple different goals along the way. You can see we have a benchmark here for 2025, another benchmark in 2030. We only do benchmarking up to then, mostly because by 2030 we'll not be in office and we do not know what the next comptroller will do, but this is currently what we're working to toward that 2040 goal. And in the plan, we have more specific directions about how we plan to get there. You can see the whole plan by clicking on this link here if you want to read the nitty-gritty details. And also down here, we have total emissions by system. We have scopes 1 and 2 emissions for each of these systems. We also have scope 3, which are like indirect emissions caused by the different sectors that we have invested in. We want to keep those separately because we want to show, basically, we don't want to cheat. And we want to show people that there's a very significant amount of indirect amount of carbon footprint that we're putting out that we're currently working on as well. And we want to keep track of that so people have that transparency. And down here is just a couple numbers. We can see that $3.8 billion of our pension system have been divested from fossil fuels, and $10.9 billion have been moved to specifically proactively invest in climate solutions. Next up, we have environmental quality. So this is some things about specifically pollution. Now we separate that out into air, water, and land. For air quality, we're tracking a couple different kinds of pollutants. We're tracking particulate matter, nitric oxide pollution, nitric dioxide pollution, ozone pollution, and black carbon. You can see these maps. All these maps are done on the average of a year. So you can see what hotspots in our city are most impacted chronically, rather than like a snapshot of one day. So you can see like when it comes to particulate matter, you can see Midtown is the #1 place where particulate matter is currently emitted. I think folks know that that is largely because of traffic. You can see nitrous oxides. Now that's usually comes from industrial uses. So you can see like industrial areas have higher nitric oxide emissions. And you can see that we have a massive nitrogen dioxide problem in New York City. It is largely speaking all of our city, but you can see both industrial areas and high traffic areas are more impacted by nitrogen dioxides. Also tracking ozone, which largely speaking impacts our coastal areas the most. And then black carbon. You'll notice that that also is elevated in areas with higher pollution because of traffic or because of industrial usages as well. We're also tracking water. So we have two things here. One thing that we have is we have every single water sampling site in the city. So at different parts of the city, we have like little testing sites. You've probably seen them, like little metal containers, where we take samples regularly of water in that area to test them for things like turbidity, which is like how clear the water is. We test it for different kinds of contaminants such as fecal chloroform or things like that. And we try to make sure that the water is generally safe. With this map, you can actually go to each of these testing sites and you can see we're currently working on automating this, so it will soon be the most recent sample, so you can see those in more lifetime. Right now, it's a snapshot of what the city looks like across the period that we took this, which was April of last year. And also, a very cool map we have is lead service line locations. This map, it takes a while to load because it's very, very detailed. But this is every single parcel in the entirety of New York City. If you click on any area, you can see which of the buildings in your neighborhood do not or are unknown about whether or not they have a lead service line. Now, lead service lines are a major problem in our city. We banned them in the we banned any use of lead in the 1980s. But a lot of them are still on the ground. There's still areas where the service lines have not been updated in a couple decades. So you still have those that exposure. So if you are curious about any building, including your own home, you can actually click on your home here, and you can see whether or not that area has lead lines or not lead lines. I know I was doing this at a school in Astoria last year, and we were looking at whether or not the school had lead lines, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is it's not that old a building. We probably don't have lead lines." And sure enough, we discovered that the school unfortunately did have lead service lines, and they have since taken action among that on that. So it's really good to know whether or not your home or your school or your place of work has lead lines. So you can check that out here. And last but not least, we are tracking it's called pollution. Specifically, we're tracking chemical storage facilities and brownfield cleanup sites. So you can see in this list, this map, where every single brownfield cleanup site is and every single chemical bulk storage facility. So you can know what's being cleaned up in your neighborhood, what is in the process or has already been cleaned up in your neighborhood. And you can also find out what chemicals are being stored near your home, your children's school, your workplace, your college, or any other kinds of places like that. And also we use this environmental justice layer to kind of show how brownfield cleanup sites and bulk storage facilities interact with climate justice designation of those neighborhoods. Here you notice that there's large bulks of both of those along certain corridors that are, largely speaking, environmental justice areas, such as parts of Queens, parts of Brooklyn, and a lot of the Bronx. All right, resiliency. This has some pretty cool maps. So this is focused on like how ready our city is for climate change, either through heat, rising seas, or increasing amounts of rainwater. So the first one we have is coastal flood risk. This is a map of every coastal area. Let's look in Brooklyn. Actually, let's look in southern Brooklyn because this area gets pretty gnarly pretty quick. All right, so I'm gonna reset this so I can show you one by one. Makes it more dramatic that way. All right, so we'll start off with sea level rise. So currently, this is more or less what high tide looks like in southern Brooklyn. Areas get flooded, but not that many areas. Of course, we are experiencing climate change, which means that high tides are going to get higher. So by the 2050s, we expect a little bit more of these areas, especially areas over here, to get more flooded during high tides. By the 2080s, you can see entire neighborhoods start getting flooded regularly once a month. And by 2100, you can see a lot of Coney Island, unfortunately, will be regularly flooded, which is the thing we'd like to avoid. We're also showing you the future floodplain. We are showing what's called basically like the 1% annual chance of flooding or a 0.2% chance. So you can see that by year. This is where we expect the floodplains to be by 2050, expanding out by 2080, then expanding out by 2100, reaching fairly far into a lot of Brooklyn, especially in southern Brooklyn and other coastal parts of Brooklyn as well. And my apartment is underwater. And you can also see how these interact with environmental justice areas as well. But what is our city doing about this? Of course, we're doing different kinds of resiliency projects. So you can also see information here about all the various resiliency projects that are happening around the city. You can click on them, find out more information about that project, what kind of project it is, who's responsible for doing it, when it started, and when it's supposed to be completed. Let's see, move on to heat risk. All right. So this is actually a really interesting map. You can see heat vulnerability index. This is every single neighborhood by how vulnerable it is to heat. And you can see how that interacts with other things as well. For instance, a thing I think is really interesting is comparing heat vulnerability to vegetative cover. You can see that they're inverses. But what's even more concerning is you can compare them to environmental justice areas. I showed you before the map that was compared historic redlining to heat vulnerability. You can see pretty directly how that that legacy still lives today. You can compare that with the heat vulnerability index in environmental justice neighborhoods. You can also do a vegetative cover, so you can see what areas get more vegetative cover than others as well. And also, we have a map here of cool-it sites. These are not cooling centers. I want to specify these are cool-it sites. These are basically things like water fountains, sprinklers, things that are like public ways to find water and coolness outside when it is a hot day. And we have them separated by what kinds they are. You can see spray showers, cooling sites, or drinking fountains. Of course, rising seas are not the only ways that water will impact our city. One major way is through stormwater and flash flood risk. With warming, with a warming planet means that there will be more evaporation. More evaporation means more water in the air. More water in the air means that more water will fall. And what that means for our city is that we are expecting more flash floods in the coming years. So let's show you some of this stuff here. So we show you things like stormwater flood risk. You can see a map of like where there's moderate stormwater flood risk and extreme stormwater flood risk. So you can see what areas are more likely to be flooded than others in the case of flash flood raining. You can also see different things like sewer sheds. So you can see like where your water is being moved. This shows you, if you live in a certain area, where your stormwater is being flushed. For instance, I'm currently sitting over here. So I think you're all over here, I believe. You can see that where your current water is being dumped around our city. And they're being dumped specifically by combined sewer overflows. So you can see like what parts of our city have combined sewers, which are ways that the areas of our city where we only have one drainage system that combines both runoff from the roads as well as runoff from your toilets. And let's see what else we can show you here. Oh, and we also see like major sewer lines. So you can see what infrastructure exists in different parts of the city. And we have DP green infrastructure projects. These are things like bioswales and other kinds of basically on-street measures of ways to get water diverted from our sewer systems. And you can actually click on each one of these and find out what specifically the project is, if it's planned, if it's being developed, if it's already developed as well. And you can see where DP is currently working on developing larger sewer projects. These are large-scale sewer projects meant to expand capacity and efficiency of the sewer infrastructure in those areas. And you can click on each one. You can find out more information about that specific project as well. And this is just some resources we have on community preparedness for residents, communities, organizations, and businesses. If you have other resources that you think should go up here as far as waste goes, we'd be very interested in putting some more of those up as well. And last but not least, we have a feedback form. This feedback form is basically, if you have any ideas, any ways you can see this being made better, you can see any ways to add more open data. You have a specific data source that you want us to integrate. If you see an error or anything like that, please plug it into here. It actually goes to my inbox, so I'm actually seeing it. So this is where you can put that kind of information, or if you have any other ideas as well. And that's it. Any other questions?
Thank you so much. This is so amazing. Before we get to any questions, I just want to say thank you so much. I feel like the climate dashboard does a lot to make us realize that that we really don't have silos, that everything is really interconnected. And it really makes it clear in a lot of ways. Maggie, do you want to ask another question? Or make another comment?
Yep, I was muted again. Let's see.
Mute people when they're not speaking.
Okay. So there was if you go back a couple of slides, there was the air and water, various tabs for looking at environmental impact. Not that one, probably, well, I'm not sure which one, but the one that had water on it too. And I would think that there should be a tab for waste because we're impacting the climate and the air and the water and the land by our export methodologies. We're sending things out of the city, and it seems as if everything I've seen is that we're ignoring everything that is beyond the city borders, even if we're responsible for it.
A specific data source you'd like us to consider, please do send it my way. This is all from what our city is putting out, just making
Right.
it more transparent.
Well, yes, but our city is running trucks into New Jersey and trains into Pennsylvania and, you know, putting things in incinerators and landfills, and we're not counting any of that, are we?
I fundamentally agree with you.
Yeah, so I think, Maggie, if you have a source where, if there's a place where all that's sourced, I don't know if there is, but you would like it to be the dashboard, it sounds like.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's basically the city, ever since they started doing this in 2007, they've had blinders on when it comes to anything that's outside the city's borders, even if we're responsible for it. And that's why I bring up the upstream, you know, where we're mining and logging and manufacturing and refining and transporting all the goods that come in here, but we're ignoring all those impacts. We're taking no responsibility, and yet we could be spending some of the billions of dollars that is being spent here on solar panels and stuff. We could spend some of it on trying to reduce consumption and increase participation rates, which are piss poor, you know. So that's basically, I'm hoping that we could, that your office could argue that there should be more money spent for upstream waste and environmental issues so as to reduce those.
Really important issues. I can look to see if we're doing any current investments in those as far as our pension investments goes.
That's great. That's a great thought. Thank you. Thanks for your questions, Maggie. Any other questions? Anything in the room? Oh, yeah, go ahead, Marielle.
Yeah, so congratulations for, you know, not only putting the metric or the dashboard together, but also tracking yourself and seeing how well you're doing relative to plan. What is the likelihood of doing that for all the other agencies that are falling short on some of the goals and, you know, getting their participation and holding their feet to the fire, since it is such a collective issue?
Yeah, so as far as other agencies goes, we have what we have available on open data. If they want to disclose more information, we're glad to put it up there.
Yeah, Stephanie, again, this is great, really emphasizing what everyone else has mentioned. I appreciate that. I think a lot of these tools are designed to be shared with the public. Can you speak a little bit about how these tools, if at all, are used internally within the office or shared with other agencies? Like, is this the guiding source, these visualizations, or are they getting right to the data? Are they not using it at all, etc.?
Oh, I mean, like we do use it in the office as far as like we have like a public engagement unit that looks at this information sometimes to help like neighborhood groups based by borough or issue look at specific issues that they might be concerned about in their neighborhoods or that might be impacting their specific populations. So yeah, we do do things like make sure people are aware of those things. We utilize it internally to see where there might be flooding, if there's a storm coming, things like that.
I guess, sorry, just to follow up, I think we're kind of along the same line. Is there a part of the New York City government where they're taking all the promises that they've made and the climate plans that they have that go across all the agencies and say, this is how we're doing against our plan, our goals, etc., and really having an opportunity to take stock of everything and maybe say, okay, we need to do more of this or less of that in order to really get us closer to meeting our goals?
It's like where transparency goes, I think we're the ones that do the most of it. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, I would say, but there's, I mean, we also try to mention all of the professed goals in our testimony as much as we can to remind the city that we remember the 0 by 30 goal or whatever.
You can utilize some of the information in this dashboard to help hold them further accountable by saying this is where you are right now.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Could you quickly just go over the scope 1, 2, and 3 in the particular matter? I kind of got lost there.
So scope 1, 2, and 3 in particular matter are two different issues. Scope 1, 2, and 3 are related to emissions and like where those emissions are coming from. Particulate matter is a kind of pollution. So when we're talking about like pollution other than greenhouse gases, we're talking about like chemicals that are being in the air. Particulate matter specifically is like small pieces of like particles. You might remember like 2 years ago when the entire sky turned bright orange. That was due to particulate matter in the air. When it comes to emissions are specifically looking at greenhouse gases, the biggest of which is carbon dioxide. Scope 1, 2, and 3 designates like different ways that you can track the carbon emissions of something. Scope 1 and 2 are basically like direct use. So like if you are digging up fossil fuels, you're gonna have the carbon footprint of digging up those fossil fuels. But then you're selling that product. So the scope 2 would be burning that product. But also you need to invest in getting that stuff out of the ground in the first place. So all the tools you use, all the things you use after that, all the things that are indirect are, also important to track because it's one thing to focus on what you're doing immediately. It's a whole nother thing to track the impacts you'll have downstream and upstream from where you are. So we try to track all of those. This way people can know not just what we're directly burning, but also how that impacts both upstream and downstream of where that specific like burning or utilization of some kind of fuel goes.
Thank you.
Excellent. There's a question in the chat that I just want to go to about any kind of public or stakeholder advisory component to this. Is there one? And then do you also share it with other agencies to help them better plan or if they have any corrections to anything that's been
So this is on our website. It's up there for anyone to use. If any agency wants to use it, I've talked to some people that work in city government or state government that have told me that they've actually utilized this in their work. So we do have it, readily used on accessible on our website. So anyone, both inside city and outside city, can utilize it in their work. As far as there like being you mentioned like a board to oversee this, is that what you're talking about?
I mean, I think that the question is really about a board, someone like an advisory board, someone to not oversee it, I don't think. I mean, I don't know, Kendall, do you want to specify or if you mean oversight or if you mean just like some kind of public, I'm not sure if he's with us.
Contribution.
Yeah, just like to contribute or
we keep this up for anyone to contribute. We have that feedback form up there so to make sure that people always have a way to contact us with how to improve this. We do want to make sure that we're improving it constantly to make sure that's useful to the people that utilize it.
excellent. I can't believe you're doing it manually. That's, oh yeah, that goes to another question. Is there a timeline for when you're going to get this up to be updated or collected automatically?
We're actually currently working on that timeline. I had a meeting like last week, not like last week, the week before Christmas on that timeline. We're supposed to get more details about that timeline, hopefully clear up by the end of this month. But it's currently TBD, but we're hoping to get it done this year.
Okay, this year. Well, that's great. Thank you. That's amazing.
Hoping to get it done.
Yeah, well,
Working on it. Yeah.
impressive that it's even where it is. That's
Yeah.
really exciting. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you give us like a hint or a general overview on the types of tools that you're using to convert the open data into mapped data?
Using particularly fancy things. We're using Excel. We're using what's called GIS, which is like a mapping software. And we're plugging the stuff in and utilizing just basic graphic design to represent that data. We're not using any kind of like particularly fancy or advanced what's it called, programs to do this. The most advanced what we're doing is probably a couple of VLOOKUPs from Excel, which is a complicated and very frustrating function of Excel, and the maps, which is using GIS, which is basically like a map making data software.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. We're very excited. Allison, I don't know if your hand is up for a new question or is it?
Yeah, just a quick question. I was just wondering how you're going to be using this database and reporting to the city on the impacts after congestion pricing and the impacts on pollution reduction. Are you planning to like issue a report in the next month or so? Or
Our policy team is working on something like that. But as far as like how this will be impacted in this specific dashboard, I suspect that we will see differences in these maps. We will probably see different places where, for instance, particulate matter in Midtown hopefully would reduce. And hopefully we should see that represented in this data.
Wow, excellent. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much. We really appreciate. I just want to clap again for everything.
Thank you all so much. Thanks for having me.
It's really fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming and for sharing your knowledge with us. You're always invited back if you ever want to speak. You're doing great work, and we really look up to you in a lot of ways. Thank you. Very much.
We're really excited about the stuff here that you're getting done in Brooklyn.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Well, and you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or we are not offended if you feel like leaving as well. All right, thank you. Thanks a lot. So thanks everybody for your great questions as well. So let's move to our next agenda item, which is an update from Lacey.
Hi everybody. I'll be really quick. Not a ton going on the waste front over here, but just wanted to share that we're excited because the first commercial waste zone is official and real as of I think 2 days ago, or last week, and so that's the Queens Central Zone, and so it is up and running. There are now officially 3 designated carters working there, and we had a meeting with sanitation on Friday. They shared some of the stats in terms of signups. The way that it works is that the designated carters have a certain amount of time to sign up customers. If they're not able to do that in that amount of time, sanitation will choose for them, although they have the opportunity to then renegotiate after that if they want to. And so it sounds like most of the businesses in the zone now have their contracts and they are up and running. We are eager to find out when they're going to do the full rollout, or I guess what the next steps are. Sanitation told us they're kind of in a evaluation period from this pilot for at least the next month, and then they're going to let us know whether they're going to do something tiered or the whole city or what. And so we're looking forward to that because that's when the real impact starts happening in terms of vehicle miles traveled and enforcement and diversion and all the things that we wanted to see from this program. So
yeah. And they'll be reporting on that, right? The people.
Yes, there was some agency rulemaking that has a bunch of reporting requirements for the carters on all kinds of safety stuff and diversion rate and they also just basically are in the process of passing a rule that says if they're going to do like an average, if they're going to charge based on an average, they have to actually do a waste, what do they call it, like waste study. They have to actually see how much waste the business is producing to decide how much they charge them, which makes a lot of sense. And they also just updated the rules to say that right now the city or the businesses are obligated to provide, I think, 2 days of pickup a week, but they just changed it to 5 days for refuse specifically. And like if there's a large business that needs it, you know, they don't want the trash sitting on the street. And so we put in a comment on that rulemaking saying that they should also increase the options for recyclables and organics, obviously, especially if we have a big business that's diverting food waste. They might need pickup more than once a week. When we talked to sanitation, they said that was a very smart comment and they were taking it under advisement. So, you know, they're learning as they go on this. And, you know, we're excited.
Well, we have so much to thank your office for this. It's been a long, long haul, and we're really excited, and we cheer you on, and we thank you, and hopefully it's gonna pave the way for more environmental justice legislation. Thank you. Thanks for always being a champion of that.
Oh, I will say one more thing. There's going to be a hearing in the Environmental Protection Committee of the Council on January 28th. It is about last mile and air quality. So we've been doing a lot of work with advocates, speaking of EJ stuff, on regulation of last mile facilities. One of the bills would create what they call an indirect source rule, which would regulate basically traffic generated by these big warehouses. But additionally, another bill that's being heard is about requiring the city to designate heavy use thoroughfares and do air quality monitoring along those thoroughfares. I think this is very much related to waste, obviously, because a lot of our truck traffic is coming from these commercial corridors before we implement this program. So, you know, if that's something of interest to you, you could check that out.
Okay, thank you. Wow, that's great to know. Yeah, excellent. Okay, so thanks for those updates. Now let's move on to coalition updates. Save Our Compost.
Hi, everyone. Happy New Year. Save Our Compost, we're just meeting monthly right now because it's a quiet time and everybody was in a very busy holiday season. I feel like November and December, especially the short time between Thanksgiving and Christmas and Hanukkah was went fast. But we did meet briefly in December, but just more for just some smaller committee updates, and we don't have another meeting until next week. So I think then we'll really pick up and see what there is to focus on. We're just checking some strategizing for policy and things like that. So there'll be more to come, I am sure.
Excellent. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Reusable NYC. And then the meeting tomorrow, right?
They're meeting tomorrow, but our last meeting came before their December meeting, so I can update you on that. I wasn't able to attend, but Mary was. And there was some talk about the Intro 900, the hydration for all. They did send around a list of CMs who haven't signed on to it yet, so I'll share that with BkSWAB members. If any of your CMs are on there, please do reach out. And then it also sounded like they were saying there's some traction with CM Powers about the Choose to Reuse legislation, and it may get reintroduced sometime early this year, which would be great. We'll see. But that's pretty much it.
Thank you.
No problem.
So now we're going to go on to committee reports. Executive committee, does anybody, I'm sure we all read Mary Ellen's beautiful notes from December. Thank you, Mary Ellen, for sending those out again. Does anybody propose, wait, do we have?
We do.
Okay. So does anybody propose to approve the meeting minutes from December? Okay. So any second?
I see a Liz and I see a Mark.
Okay. Can all in favor of approving?
Do us a favor. Okay. Keep your hands up.
Everybody keep your hands up.
4,
That's still counting.
5. Oh God. 6. Hey Lord.
We should just say who doesn't.
11, 12, okay, I think, yes, great, 13, okay.
Any no's? I think that these people are still up, right?
Yeah, from before.
Anybody, any abstentions? Oh, good job. That means somebody read it. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. The meeting minutes are approved for December, and thank you very much, Mary Ellen, for doing this. Otherwise, the legislative committee, the executive committee, do you remember anything that we need to update? Oh yeah, so next month we're going to start a nominating committee for elections in June. So if anybody's interested in being part of the nominating committee, come forward. You can email the Brooklyn SWAB general email and we'll check that. Put you forward. If anybody wants to join, please feel free.
Yeah.
If you've been to 2 or more meetings in a row, three
Meetings in the last 6 months.
3 meetings in the last 6 months. It doesn't even have to be in a row.
Yeah.
So we'd love to have you.
Yeah, and you can come talk, if you're here in person, you can come talk to me or Lacey, I feel like.
Yeah.
And if you're on the Zoom,
yeah, you can email.
You send us an email, but there's also a link to the application form on our website.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. So however you want to do it. If you want to be a little more discreet.
But join us, we're really fun.
Yeah, and now that it's a new year, there might be people who have their terms up, so I will check on that and email you if you need to, if and when you need to reapply.
Yeah, there's a reapplication process now.
Yes.
Our amazing environmental justice borough president's office is very good about asking us to reapply, and so we'd love to have people.
I just like to have records of things.
Yeah.
Know who the members are.
Yeah, that's always good.
It's very easy. It's a very easy form.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's very low key. It's good for records. Okay.
So the only criteria is attendance meeting.
Yeah, that's
Is
it.
that the
To
only
be
thing to look at?
eligible to apply,
Oh,
it's just
okay.
3 meetings in the last 6 months. Yes. That's right.
Yeah,
What's
you have to fill out the form. You have to disclose if you have any conflicts of interest. We do like a light vetting because it is an appointment from our office. But we've never rejected anyone that I'm aware of.
Yeah, right.
So
Plus, seriously, especially we wouldn't reject anyone that we've been hounding for a long time. So you're going to be hounded soon. So. Yeah, exactly. But yeah. We're going to close the door.
And those of you who are on the Zoom whose names I recognize because you've been to a number of meetings know that we're winking at you virtually.
Yes, exactly. We'd love you to join. Betty, do you want to add something?
Or is your hand up from before?
Oh yeah, maybe she voted. She's really wholeheartedly supporting the
voting
approval of the minutes.
Oh,
Okay, should we move on to the legislative committee?
Sure, yeah.
Thanks.
And of course, when you all join, then join the legislative committee. We could always use more people. And so in our December meeting, we had a nice conversation about the kind of SWAB policy priorities for New York City and how to move things forward. I think we're going to continue that conversation in our January meeting, strategize how we can just be more proactive this year. So our next meeting is January 30th at 6 p.m., I believe. So please join us, and you feel free to email me if you have any questions or yeah. And then I did want to point out that there is a lobby day on January 18th that the Beyond Plastics is running. Just putting that on your radar. They're going to be lobbying for the Packaging Reduction and Recycling Infrastructure Act and the Bigger, Better Bottle Bill. And I hope we can add that to our meeting minutes. So.
Yes, and also we can send out an email about it, and also the swabs, all swabs have come out with testimony in favor of both bills. As so we it's not something that you're speaking about, but you can also go as yourself, representing yourself, and then just sort of talk about what the SWAB statement is, and then you can make your own personal testimonials. But yeah, go ahead.
I did say I see someone in the chat said it's the 28th, not the 18th. So if I said the 18th, I apologize. It's the 28th.
Oh, right. And also, just something of note about the SWAB is that we have now it's the Queens, Brooklyn, and Manhattan SWABs who are all meeting on a regular basis. For the legislative committee meeting. Did I say that? I just didn't say that. For the legislative committee meeting. So it's kind of nice to rub elbows with other SWAB members from other boroughs. And it makes it easier to do all SWAB statements because the legislative committee is trying to do all SWAB statements. It's important to keep in mind just what which members of each borough faces. And, as we try to consider our own constituents in our legislative recommendations, we also want to think about constituents that maybe aren't represented in our SWABs, whereas there's a lot more environmental justice minded. Kind of all are now, but very personally invested in environmental justice outcomes in the Queen SWAB, for instance, and the Bronx SWAB. So we hope for more collaboration like that. Outreach committee. And thank you, Uli.
Hi, everybody. Mark Hellerman here. The outreach committee members are working on a few different things. We continue to work on a letter to city council members about participation in the organics separation program. Social media is still happening, maintaining a presence there. We have a subcommittee that's working on a community board presentation, and they're going to be getting back together in the next few weeks. We're making updates to the BkSWAB website, resources and updates there. And that's most of it. Next meeting is a week from tonight, 6:30 p.m. If you're interested, send me an email. I'll put my address in the chat. And unless I'm missing something, I think that covers it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very efficient, wonderfully done. Events committee.
Hello, hi everybody. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So for events committee, there's going to be a meeting on Wednesday, January 22nd. That's the fourth Wednesday of the month. And we're gonna kind of start the conversation about planning the Riverkeeper sweep. We had a successful Riverkeeper waterfront cleanup last, it was April or May. And thank you, Mary Ellen, for working on that. So the Riverkeeper emailed again to get that process going. So we can discuss if we want to keep the same site or pick another one. And I think it's a great event for SWAB to invest in because we get a lot of our site gets published on their website and it draws a lot of people, not just only people who are on the SWAB mailing list, but on the Riverkeeper mailing list. So we actually had a lot of people come who didn't know about the SWAB, and so it's kind of like a little bit of a recruiting opportunity for people to come do a waterfront cleanup and learn about the SWAB and get involved. So I'll be sending out an email about that.
Thank you, and excellent. NYCHA committee is maybe we don't have.
Susan's not here.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone else can speak to it.
Yeah, is there anybody else besides Susan who goes to the NYCHA committee meetings? Do you?
Yeah, I go to the NYCHA, committee meetings. We are doing we originally proposed a waste audit program for NYCHA. waste audit program for NYCHA, and then it's morphed into more of an outreach program where we'll be doing that over the spring and summer. We'll have our next quarterly meeting, I think, next month with NYCHA's sustainability group. We meet with them quarterly. We're also supporting Intercity Green Team's effort to hopefully distribute countertop food dehydrator composter things. And we'll see how that goes. And there's a lot of other things, but I just can't remember what they are.
Well, thanks for that.
Wait, you're distributing like a
Found-
mill?
Countertop,
Yeah,
like a
mill,
mill.
yeah. Don't get me started.
That's so interesting.
It's not that
Yeah,
it's- well,
I know, and very interesting. I will also say regarding the 696 report, you know, we've taken, thanks everybody, I think we mentioned last time, thanks everybody for your comments. We're taking those into advisement and we're going into a sort of a editing phase, editing period for that. And then prior to, and then we'll have next steps after that. Is there anything you want to say, Lacey? No.
I think you covered it.
Yeah, it's moving along, and that's that. It's important legislation, so we'll see. We'll see what the next steps are, and we'll keep people posted about what the next steps are.
We saw Ezra today. He says hi.
Yeah, Ezra says hi. He's going into his last semester of college. You can believe that. Our intern for the
So
summer.
proud of him.
Created
Our forever
this
intern.
report. Yeah, our forever intern. He can't, it's quicksand stepping into an internship with the SWAB and Borough President's office. Okay. And then the only open announcement that I have, sorry for not having more, is just about the Sanitation Foundation's Trash Academy, but we sent that around as well. It's open to anyone, you can apply.
So how many people attended Trash Academy last year?
Or anytime previously,
Or
when it was
previously.
Zero Waste Academy.
Oh, right. Oh, right, it got renamed Trash Academy.
And how many people would give it a thumbs up? Like a good
Oh, you
experience?
liked it?
I didn't go to the trash account.
You went to the Zero Waste Academy?
Yeah, I would recommend it. It's,
Really?
you know, you really get an overview of the trash and recycling infrastructure in New York City. It really, I mean, I've been doing this for a while and I learned a lot.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah, no,
Wow,
it's good. It's really good.
I arrogantly thought there was nothing I could learn from that, but if
Uh,
Michael thinks I could learn from it, then
And there's a lot of
I
other
can.
people there in terms of networking. I mean, there's a lot of people there who would be excellent SWAB members.
Oh, nice, right?
It is a good recruitment event for us when they do graduation as well.
Oh, good, right. You guys tabled last year graduation.
really tabled
right?
the
Yeah,
graduation.
sure. And Sherry, nice. Oh, Afia, are you? Are you raising your hand, Afia, for having attended Trash Academy or Zero Waste Academy?
Or something else.
Or do you have a comment or a question?
Oh no, I attended and it was great. Learned a lot.
You learned a lot too.
Yeah.
I like that you guys say you learned a lot, but nobody really says what they learned. Really makes me wanna
It's also a
join.
good opportunity to ask hard questions.
Really? And do you feel like you get good answers? straight
No,
answers?
but I think it's still helpful.
Right, just for them to
Sometimes,
hear the hard
sometimes
questions.
you get good answer. It depends on the facility.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, field trips.
Oh, yeah.
So what
Field
kind of
trips.
field trips? Do you see then like the Varick Avenue slurry?
Go to the Staten Island facility,
Go
right?
to
Yeah.
Staten Island facility, and then you
Yeah.
could have gone to the construction waste. That was less soon.
That was
Because
virtual.
it was during COVID.
This year, I think they're doing an in-person tour of the MRF in Sunset Park, so you can see the recycling in real life if you haven't been.
And Uli says Cooper?
Cooper Tank.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the
site
Cooper,
for,
That's what's the word, Mary Ellen?
Is it construction?
Yes, thank you, C&D waste.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, it's very cool.
right. and Vasile attended the academy. He would strongly encourage everyone to attend it. So we're getting lots of recommendations.
But you have to apply by the 8th. What's today, the 6th? So you have
Oh,
2
yeah.
days to get your application.
Okay, all right, let me hurry up.
They take your SATs too, right?
Right.
Speaking of,
I thought it was
classes,
SAT optional.
does anyone have updates on the master composter classes?
Oh, yeah, Sherry.
I was gonna.
Yes, I was actually gonna add that.
I did.
So a couple things, and I see I can add some clarification on the trees as well, because we
Good,
reached
thank
out to DSNY, but first, Master Composter. So it is coming back this month and very shortly. So if you have not been, and thanks to all who have been supporting it and meeting with me, if I've been bugging you or whatever, if you weren't in the program before and getting all of the emails, I can we just have a little interest form so that we can add you to the list when it's public. If you were getting the newsletter before, you're still on the list. We're using the same MailChimp list. So I'm going to find it and drop the link in the chat. So I'm very excited. It's been a lot of work, a lot of meetings, a lot of organizations are involved. So it should be very exciting. So that is that. I'll put that in there in a minute. I see yes, Kendall, the Christmas tree co-collection with curbside organics. That is what is happening. Now, if trees are put out on the curb, it will be collected with your food scraps. Those trees will not be chipped. They will not be separated to be chipped. If you want to chip your trees, you need to go to Parks Mulch Fest in order to do that. So, and we did confirm that with DSNY, because I was like, we saw that the wording changed at the bottom of the Mulch Fest page, and we were like, wait a second, what's happening? And yeah.
Oh, do we know where the trees are going then when they get picked up with curbside? Are they
Probably Staten Island. I mean, because
are they
not
though? How?
No,
How? Think
they're
about
going
it.
wherever.
Right.
It's not all Staten Island, it's wherever your organics go, but we did learn with some of that info that some of that is changing as what happens with DSNY, but we don't have the updates. So like not everything necessarily is going right to the digesters anymore, but I don't have more info than that. But yeah, we were like, we didn't think the digesters wanted a lot of trees, but that's.
No, they don't. And also yeah, we toured that and it was like.
Does
Doesn't
anyone know, I'm wondering if they are coming back, okay. I just think that they should, if they are sending most stuff to Newtown Creek, they should come by with the split back trucks and be putting the trees on one side and the other side. But has anyone seen it? Has anyone seen the trees be collected?
For landfilling, that's not a good idea. That's the only other thing we can do is landfill.
Right.
We can't touch it.
But I'm saying if they're separating the trees and say bringing those to Staten Island, then wouldn't they want to keep them separate from the rest of the organics collection and not have a whole tree and with the other stuff?
Oh.
No idea.
Wow. It's
Well, then
called
why would
something
they be
different now.
separated?
Huh?
Why would they separate?
But they're saying to put them out with your food scraps.
Yeah.
They collected ours. We had a couple trees out and I'm 99% sure I did not see it, but when our brown bins got emptied, the trees disappeared and I doubt we had a separate truck come because we usually have to schedule that. So yeah, go ahead. Kendall, I saw you unmuted.
Yeah, well, it is a change in practice and the question is what thinking went into it before that change was made or not, as the case may be. I've checked with a couple of the processors who were caught a little bit off guard by it and now have to deal with the consequences of it. And if you sort of visually imagine, a bunch of Christmas trees with food waste bags, embedded in them and what that means for processors and the like. So I think it's something that, may have been an efficiency, initiative by DSNY, but without really thinking through the processing aspects of it. And it would be interesting to sort of useful to, I think, to sort of follow up with them on how this works. They've also said that essentially you could put your trees out in April and they'll be co-collected with your brown bin material. So, but be interesting just to sort of circle back to the processors who are generally reluctant to talk on the record because of their relationship with DSNY. But my understanding is that, again, that they were sort of caught off guard by it and are now sort of figuring out how to deal with it.
Okay, so I just found an article in the Times that says most of the trees will be sent to compost facilities in the Bronx or Staten Island, where they'll be turned into mulch for parks and other community spaces.
Well, that was, Lacey, that was always the case before when trees were separately collected.
Yeah,
and,
this is
and
from
then,
December 26th of last year, and it's
Of 2023.
24. No,
Oh,
2024.
Oh, this year.
It's talking about the change, and then it says that. So I don't know.
So maybe it's not.
That's best information.
Okay.
yeah, and I'm also, checking with people in other, other cities about, what best practices are and whether other cities are now, up until this year or the last couple of years, curbside programs really didn't exist to create this sort of issue. And trees were collected separately and handled as a separate, separate material. So we'll see.
I just want to ask a question, but if you can't answer this because that people don't want to talk on the record, but when you're talking about processors are, you didn't say up in arms, but something like they were just like
Caught off guard is what I said.
on guard. Do what?
Caught off guard.
Caught off guard. So processors meaning organics processors? Is that what you mean?
Yes, yes.
And so I'm just trying to think about who processes our organics in the city.
Waste management.
Do you mean like waste management or compost or there's only waste management, right?
Well,
What? It's not? Am I putting you on the spot? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
You're unnecessarily putting me on the spot. GSNY has about 10 or 11 contractors, many of which are one company, but there are a variety of other companies that handle organics for DSNY on a contractual basis.
Okay. I'll have to ask you offline. I just didn't realize.
Like
I don't know. Oh, you mean pre-processed?
Right, yeah.
I'm sorry, we're having a conversation to try not to put you on the spot, to try to clear up my new.
My point is that, these things are sort of systems and materials sort of flow through a system, and every aspect of that system has to be thought about before you make a change in it. And it wasn't clear from the conversations I've had with some of the processors that they were part of the planning discussion about this particular change of co-collection of Christmas trees with other types of organics.
Okay, that helps. That clears things up. Thank you.
And it sounds like some of it, though I agree, it'd be nice to circle back. I was rereading my email from DSNY. It sounds like they might have a little more, oh guys, you just said it and I don't remember, but a little bit more like separation in the processing than they normally would with the trees. So it'll be interesting to see what we can learn about that whole entire process this
like
time.
how it shifts because of this different inputs that are coming in.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's
Rhonda,
that.
if I could, the other question I posted in the chat was about the enforcement now of waste containerization for 1 to 9 family homes in the city, in Brooklyn in particular, which started as of Thursday, I guess, is when tickets can now be written for failure to containerize mixed waste. And DSNY was reported as saying that they issued in the last 2 months 70,000 warnings, which I find just absurd. I'm not aware of anyone that has gotten a warning for failure to use a container for their mixed waste. But I think the rollout for that has gone pretty slowly, and most people are still unaware of it. and just curious what other people are hearing. And I would add that my community board just sent a letter to DSNY asking for a 4-month delay in enforcement until May to allow more time for the transition to occur.
Yeah, I haven't, I mean, people are stepping it up on my block, which surprised me because there's a lot of sort of old timers there. But everyone seems to be getting the memo. Yeah. Brooklyn Heights is abounds in this.
There's a lot of new bins, but at the same time, my building does not have new bins. We have old bins, and we hire a service that many buildings within the block use, and they do not put our trash out in bins. They just put them out in bags, and we have not received a warning. We have not received a ticket. Knock on wood. You know, now I will. But just letting you know, and it just reminded me to reach out to the company that does our, you know, shoveling and trash and other things to see if they're on board. They typically are not very well versed in the rules.
Yeah. Yeah, I was surprised that our landlords got any bins at all. They didn't get all of the array of bins. They just got trash, and they got two big ones. Yeah. So anyway. Anybody else? This is early. It's funny because when we go over with our speaker, it feels like, oh my gosh, we're gonna go over with our time, but then I try to have, I don't know, half an hour for discussion at the end so we can all chat.
I actually have another thing that I noticed by chance when I was answering a phone call. I dropped the link in the chat. Well, first of all, there's the Ecology Center is doing their electronics drop-offs into January, like there's a few coming up. But in looking into other things, I noticed the special waste drop-offs that DSNY has, there's one in each borough, are now open as of right after Christmas, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday every week from 9 to 5. And they're closed during legal holidays and during severe weather. So I just wanted to note that, because it used to be only Saturdays and like the last Friday of the month. So that expanded.
It's one in each borough, right, Sharon?
Yeah.
Yep, there's one in each borough. The one in Brooklyn is in Greenpoint. The one in Manhattan is actually closer to us, like downtown, because it's right over the Manhattan Bridge, at the base of the bridge on the Manhattan side. So, but now with congestion pricing, we have to pay to go in to do it. So we'll have to drive farther to recycle the batteries from my co-op. But yeah. So we made a run on Saturday before it started. But they take like light bulbs and all a few more things that I didn't know, like vape pens, which get collected at my co-op, but and the e-waste drop-offs don't take. So
and things like printers, that should go in the regular recycling, right? That's what I feel like Christina told me when I tried to drop off a printer with her once. She was like, nope, it's not electronic, it's just an appliance.
No.
Really? I've definitely dropped a printer with her. Let me see.
That is definitely electronic.
Okay, so maybe I misunderstood her. I don't mean to misquote Christina.
Yeah.
Is there a link that we could share?
She has that.
She put the link.
We can put that. Maybe we can have
Thank you, Sharon. And happy birthday.
What happened?
Oh, happy birthday. Oh, happy
What?
Happy birthday.
Like, I'm trying to look at the thing. Were you saying that to me?
Yes, happy birthday.
Thank you. Thank you. Spending
Also,
my every so many years it comes around that it's on a Monday.
Happy birthday.
Happy, look at
Oh, look at that fun. That was so fun in the chat. I do have one more quick thing to announce. I love the cakes. I don't know where they're coming from. But
I don't know who's doing
it. Just happens automatically. When you write happy birthday, it just magically makes cakes happen.
Wow. That's so cool. I wanted to share a couple things, and it is really more Manhattan focused, but it's another ecology center thing. We had hired, I don't know if folks know, but we had hired a couple people that are supporting curbside composting outreach, mainly focused in Manhattan, but I know there are other folks from Manhattan on this call as well. But they have an email address and like an info form if you have, a larger building and are looking for some extra support. So I wanted to let folks know about that, and I can share info in the chat.
That's great.
Sherry, can you email it to me?
Can I email it? Yes. Go to you. Wait, who said that? Lacey?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Love it if you CC the Brooklyn SWAB.
Oh, yeah. You can email it to everybody.
Yeah. I mean, you
Want
just do it to the group, members and guests group, or the
I just we can't get the chat links.
Yeah, exactly. I had to close my computer because it was done.
Yeah, and I will say like the actual like physical outreach is focused on Manhattan, but they've been working on gathering resources and things like that as well. So trying to do some in-person events. We did a few presentations. So yeah.
Well, thanks to the Lower East Side Ecology for pushing that forward so much. You guys do.
Well, and that's thanks to the city council for their funding, and same thing with the master composter reboot, as I'm calling it this time, because I relaunched it once already. So this time's a reboot, but it's coming. It's coming. So yeah. I think that's all the announcements I have.
Okay, well, those are great announcements. Thank you very much. And thanks for that. The Bring Centers, I guess that's something Greg has talked about for years. I don't know if Greg's still on, but about having Bring Centers where you can bringing, hazardous materials, but also like organics and other recycling stuff. It's a great, it's sort of like
it's the core act.
Basically. Exactly.
You just have to implement that.
Yeah. And so this is maybe part of that. Maybe this is fulfilling the core act. That's what I'm guessing.
It could be some of what they take at the special waste drop-offs. Like I didn't realize they take paint there as well. I mean, if you have smaller amounts. And then like Kendall, I just saw you were posting about the batteries, because they take like the batteries from the like e-bikes and stuff like that. So there's lots of and tires they take at those sites. So
wow.
But
just rechargeables, not regular batteries.
No, they'll take alkaline as well. You can technically put them in the garbage, but if you're like me, I just can't seem putting them into the landfill. So they'll take all of them. They'll take all kinds of batteries. Because I have a collection at my co-op and I take them and weigh them. We've collected hundreds of batteries. I probably just recycled like 50 or 60 pounds of batteries, but like your, lantern batteries, like laptop batteries, all kinds of batteries they take there, including rechargeable.
Debbie, can you share that in the, what you just put in the chat? None of us can you put it into an email? We're gonna have emails flying back and forth with all these great links, but at least we'll be able to, that would be great if we could have that. And also, Allison, please feel free to share that. And Kendall, after you go to the event about recycling, we'd love to hear about it. Okay. All right. Anything else? Nope. Okay. All right. Well, okay, I'm going to say it. I'm going to give you back 8 minutes of your lives.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you. And we'll see you in February.
Good night, everyone.
Bye. Thanks so much.
Good night.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.